It has now been confirmed via emails, interviews, and investigations that under Donald Trump, the Department of Homeland Security, while being run by Chad Wolf, was in fact trying to create terrorists here in the United States for Donald Trump to use in his 2020 presidential campaign. The terrorists in question were actually the protesters from the summer of 2020, the George Floyd protest that happened after Floyd was murdered by police officers. Chad Wolf at the Department of Homeland Security, and again, this has now been confirmed, Chad Wolf sprang into action. Donald Trump was out there telling us that these people were terrorists, that they all had these horrible histories, that they were planning terrible attacks here in the United States far beyond the protests we were seeing. So Chad Wolf had the Department of Homeland Security go to work. And they started creating dossiers on these people that were out there protesting, trying to make it seem like they were some sort of hardened criminal terrorist cell, when in fact they were just people angry at seeing yet another black man get murdered at the hands of police officers. But it went much further than that, according to the internal documents at the Department of Homeland Security. As we all know, there were reports, there were tweets, people on the ground talking about mysterious unmarked vans showing up, people in camouflage fatigues, jumping out of the vehicles, grabbing up protesters, and disappearing them. We never had any confirmation that this was actually happening or that these people, were they law enforcement? Were they feds? Nope. Internal documents from Homeland Security have confirmed that yes, those things did happen. And yes, those were federal agents who were disappearing American citizens off of American streets. Many of them who never even faced criminal charges because they were not assaulting police officers. They were not defacing anything. They were literally exercising their First Amendment freedoms. And the Department of Homeland Security showed up in unmarked vans, snatched them off the street, and did God knows what with them. That's confirmed. Okay, this is a massive new report, by the way, and I've barely scratched the surface here, but I think you get the gist of it at this point. What Chad Wolf and the Department of Homeland Security were attempting to do was show that these people out in the streets were actually domestic terrorists because Donald Trump had claimed they were domestic terrorists, and he needed that for his 2020 presidential campaign. He was already getting hammered in the polls because of COVID. He was losing support. People were pissed. He needed something, and the Department of Homeland Security was trying to deliver it for him. I know we had midterms this week, so that kind of dominated the news, but this should be the biggest story in the United States of America today. It should be, but it's not. It came and went like a flash in the pan. Nobody cared. Nobody cared that the federal government, under Trump's orders, was out there snatching people off the streets and trying to convict them as terrorists. The same way that nobody cared when it was revealed about a year ago that the vast majority, like 95 to 97% of the people arrested in these protests in the summer of 2020, about 95% or more of them had all the charges dropped against them. You didn't hear that from conservative media. I don't even think you heard it from liberal media. I talked about it, I know. I know other shows did too, but not the big corporate folks. These people were not terrorists. Some of them defaced government property, and that's not good. Some of them started a couple small fires. That's not good either. I don't condone that. But I sure as hell don't condone the United States government trying to turn these people into terrorists for political gain. That, to me, is the worst crime of all.
This is Hattie. Hattie wants to know why you have not subscribed to our channel. You obviously like our videos, so do us a favor and subscribe.